What's up everyone, Darcblade here with another Hunter's Guide to Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. In this video we're going to be bringing you another endgame build, this time for the Hunting Horn. Now as always, what is an endgame build? Well, it's a build that is constructed from some of the rarest armor, weaponry and decorations in the game. They also feature talismans as well as the curious crafting. But when it comes to that augmentation system, the upgrades on the armor are not to the extent where every single piece of armor features the absolute rarest of skill augmentations. Now if you find these videos helpful, informative or entertaining, please consider leaving a like on the video as well as subscribing to the channel, as I try to bring you a variety of builds for a variety of different playstyles. Now when it comes to the Hunting Horn in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, it's very different to what it has been in previous games. Whilst yes, it still maintains its core mechanics in playing songs to boost your hunter and their hunting party, in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak it's been made a little bit flashier and ultimately easier to use. And so with that I present to you the all-round Hunting Horn build. This is a Hunting Horn build that is designed to take on anything you may come across in the game. It has decent damage output, decent survivability and decent quality of life. So for this all-round Hunting Horn build, first you'll need the Flaming Espinasse Brain, you'll then need the Golden Rune Mail, the Flaming Espinasse Grips, Omnio Ateobi and the Flaming Espinasse Heels. For your Petalace, go with the Absolute Petalace. You can go for the Demon Petalace if you wanted to, but the Absolute Petalace gives us a little bit more of a balance when it comes to stats. It also gives us more health. Yes, okay, the Demon Petalace will increase our damage, but with this build I advise the Absolute Petalace. As for your Talisman, go with a Talisman with as much attack boost on it as possible. I'm using what could be considered a rare Talisman here with attack boost at level 3, recovery up at level 3, a tier 3 decoration slot, and a tier 1 decoration slot. As for my weapon, I'm using the Namal Sadiraz Asterism, which is the Lucent Nagakuga Hunting Horn. When it comes to the Krios crafting on the weapon, I'll go for a Rampage slot upgrade and then an attack increase upgrade. As for the Rampage skill itself, go with one of the anti-species decorations. And speaking of decorations, you've got a fair few to play around with, and some of these are optional depending on your personal preferences. So first of all, I've gone for Hard Steadfast Jaws to max out stun resistance. I've then gone for Challenger Jaws to max out Agitator. Next up is Tenderizer Jaws to max out Weakness Exploit, and then a Brace Jaw for a point in Flinch Free. I've then gone for Critical Jaws to max out Critical Boost, Wirebug Jaws to max out Wirebug Whisperer, a Sonorous Jaw to max out the Horn Maestro skill, Cornerstone Jaws to max out Defiance, a Handicraft Jaw for a few points in the Handicraft skill, and then Jumping Jaws for a few points in the Evade Extender skill. If there is any element that you dislike about this build, you can always switch out the gems and decorations here to something that better suits your fancy. So if you've done what I've done here, you'll have a build with a raw attack of 392 with a poison element of 17. Remember, this is a raw attack build, so the poison element is kind of negligible in all honesty. You'll also have a decent chunk of purple sharpness with 0% base affinity, which can be potentially 65% when we take into account weakness exploit and the agitator buff, and you'll have a strong defense of 853, which is strong against fire but weak to the other elements. However, as this is a Hunting Horn build, all of these stats will be increased during a hunt. This is not only thanks to the songs that we can play, but also the various skills we have available to us on this build. Speaking of songs and melodies, the Lucent Nagakuga Hunting Horn has access to the Attack Up melody, Sonic Waves melody for some extra damage, and then the Stamina Recovery Up melody. As for the switch skills, to be honest, these are kinda down to personal preference with the Hunting Horn. For me personally, I have one scroll that uses the Earthshaker and Slide Beat Silkbind attacks, and on the other scroll I have the Sonic Bloom and the Silkbind Shockwave Silkbind attacks. All four of these are very useful during any one hunt. Now as for the core skills, first of all you'll have Attack Boost at level 7. Attack Boost is a skill that increases the raw attack of a build, and at level 4 or above grants us a percentage bonus to our raw attack. You'll then have Agitator at level 5, which is a skill that is pretty much a buff. This kicks in whenever a monster becomes enraged. When this happens, you'll gain increased raw attack and base affinity. You'll then have Defiance at level 5, which again is another skill that provides us a buff when a monster becomes enraged. When this happens, it will grant us bonus defense, and on top of that we'll be completely immune to monster roars, wind effects and tremors. Next up is Critical Boost at level 3, which is a skill that increases the damage of our attacks whenever they crit a monster, but only applies to the raw portion of an attack, not the elemental or ailment portion. But as this is a raw attack build, we greatly benefit from this skill. You'll then have Weakness Exploit at level 3, which is our main affinity skill, that increases our affinity by up to 50% when we're attacking monster weak points. You'll then have Razor Sharp at level 3, which is a skill that prevents sharpness loss 50% of the time when we're attacking a monster, helping us keep that purple sharpness for longer periods of time. You'll then have spare shot at level 3, which is a byproduct of the armor we're using, is not really needed on this build whatsoever as it's a gunner skill. Next up is Divine Blessing at level 3, which is a wonderful quality of life and defensive skill that, should we take a hit from a monster, we have a high percentage chance of taking reduced damage, which helps keep us alive. You'll then have Recovery Up at level 3. Recovery Up may differ depending on the decorations you are using as well as the talismans, but Recovery Up basically increases the amount we heal through healing techniques and methods and consumables. Next up is Stun Resistance at level 3. This could be considered an optional skill in all honesty. I see it more as a quality of life skill. Stun Resistance negates all stun effects on our hunter. The main reason I take this is because I do like to spam the slide beat attack, especially against fast moving monsters. Slide beat, if you didn't know, is an attack that allows you to power through monster attacks and follow up with attacks of your own. This means that you do absorb the attack, and if you absorb an attack that is exceedingly strong, it can still potentially stun you. Stun resistance prevents this. So if you don't like to use the slide beat move, or you feel more confident, then you could potentially drop stun resistance if you so wanted to. Anyway, next up is Wirebug Whisperer at level 3, which is a skill that allows our wirebugs to have quicker cooldowns, allowing us to use our Silkbind attacks more often. It also allows us to hold additional wirebugs for longer periods of time. Next up is Burst at level 3, which is a skill that when we're continuously attacking a monster, it will gradually grant us bonus raw attack and elemental attack. Next up is Handicraft at level 2, which may differ for some of you out there. Handicraft is a skill that basically gives us more sharpness, so it adds to our purple sharpness with this build. Next up is Evade Extender at level 2, a wonderful quality of life and defensive skill for any build out there. This extends the distance at which we dodge and evade, which can help us get out of the way of incoming attacks, or chase down a monster without having to sheath our weapon. Next up is Spirit Bird Call at level 1, although with this build technically I have it at level 2, which is a little bit of a waste, but that's thanks to the Krios crafting. Spirit Bird Call is a skill that allows random spirit birds to come to our hunter at fixed intervals, reducing the need for our hunter to go out of their way to find spirit birds themselves. However, this doesn't apply to arena quests. Anyway, next up is Intrepid Heart, a wonderful skill which grants us an additional bar above our health bar. This bar will gradually fill up blue as you continuously attack the monster. When full, Intrepid Heart becomes activated, to which when you take a hit from a monster, the blue bar will be consumed, but in return, the damage reaction will be completely negated, the damage itself will actually be reduced, and on top of that at level 2, you'll cause an explosion to occur on your hunter, damaging the monster that hit you. This is a wonderful defensive skill that can sometimes save your life in sticky situations. Anyway, next up is Horn Maestro at level 1, which is a skill that increases the overall performance speed of the hunting horn as well as the shockwave damage of certain attacks. This is kind of an essential skill for any hunting horn. Next up is Flinch Free at level 1, which is a skill that prevents minor knockbacks from monsters, but we take this primarily when we're playing in a group as it negates knockbacks from our allies. Next up is Counter Strike at level 1, which is a byproduct of the armor we're using, but should we be knocked back by a monster, it will temporarily increase our raw attack. And then finally you'll have Adrenaline Rush at level 1, which is a skill that when we perform a perfectly timed evade, will receive bonus raw attack. So those are all the essential skills for this all-round hunting horn build. Let's move on to the next section where we quickly go over the Curious Crafting. Now, when it comes to the Curious Crafting, I always try to get decoration slot upgrades rather than rare skills. This is because with decoration slot upgrades or additional decoration slots, it allows for more customization with our build. So, with the Flaming Espinasse Brain, I've got an extra tier 1 decoration slot. With the Golden Loom Mail, I got a point in Weakness Exploit and a reduction in the Counter Strike skill. For the Flaming Espinasse Grips, I've got another additional tier 1 decoration slot as well as a point in the Spirit Bird Core skill. For the Omnio Aterbi, I've got a point in the Agitator skill as well as a reduction in the Emboldened skill. And then finally with the Flaming Espinasse Heals, I've got a tier 2 decoration slot upgrade, another additional tier 1 decoration slot, and then another point in the Spirit Bird Core skill, which is unfortunately wasted. Now, 2 of these augmentations could be considered rare. The Golden Loom Mail and Omnio Aterbi could be considered rare augmentations, but if you're not able to get the same as what is shown here, you can potentially switch around some of the decorations. But every build out there, even these endgame builds, they come with various pros and cons. Even though endgame builds are very powerful and have a lot of positives, they could be difficult to craft, thus having a negative. When it comes to this all-round hunting horn build, its biggest pro is its damage output. Having attack boost, agitator, crit boost, weakness exploit, burst and more, these will all help in a hunt and allow us to bring down monsters in a decent time. The next pro is this build's defensive capabilities, from Defiance, Divine Blessing, Intrepid Heart and more. Even if we take a hit from a monster, it takes the absolute strongest of attacks to bring us down. And then finally for the pros is this build has a lot of quality of life. From Razor Sharp, Recovery Up, Stun Resistance, Wirebug Whisperer, Evade Extender and more. These will all add to the quality of a hunt and make it feel easier than it maybe is. But of course there are cons. One of the biggest cons for this all-round hunting horn build is there may be at times where you dip below white sharpness, so sharpness issues could be something to be aware of. This tends to happen in prolonged fights. And the other con for this build is unfortunately it does have a few points in rarer Krios crafting skills. But like I said, you can always augment the decorations and produce a build that is similar to what is shown here. But there we have it, that is the all-round hunting horn build. As you can see, it is a strong build that not only has offensive options but defensive and quality of life options. You can also use this build against pretty much any monster you come across. With the raw attack so high and the poison rating so low, rarely will you have to worry about a monster's elemental or element resistances. On top of that, rarely is a monster completely immune to the poison element, so being able to poison a monster is just an added bonus. And if you're looking for a hunting horn build that can pretty much take on anything you come across, I'd recommend this all-round hunting horn build. But what are your thoughts? Please leave a comment down below, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you another endgame build, this time for the hunting horn in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.